Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Helpful Executive Podcast with me, your host, Rob Dunn. My guest today is Gareth Beverley, or Garth to his friends. Gareth is a successful business leader. He's the Chief Executive Officer of an international drone company, a father of two, a husband, and a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu blue belt. During this conversation, we discuss managing your well-being when traveling, why sleep is so important to your professional and your personal performance, diary management, and how to front load your week to allow you to do the things you want to do and that you love, and also being more present with your family on holiday. This was a great conversation. I've known Garth for a few years now, and he is always inspiring to talk to. He's a real business leader. He really leads from the front in terms of taking ownership of his health and his well-being, and he encourages his employees and his teams to do the same. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Gareth Beverley. Garth, great to have you on, mate. Thank you very much for making the time. It is appreciated.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here. Always happy to talk with this kind of subject through with you. I love what you're putting out, so it's nice to be here.
That's appreciated. So I think for those watching, I should highlight that I've known Garth for a couple of years now, and so I have a bit of an insight into who he is and what he does, and so for me, when writing kind of a list of names as to who I wanted on the podcast, you were right up there. So again, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, no worries.
So, for those that don't know you, Garth, would you be kind enough to perhaps give us a bit of an insight as to who you are, and as such, maybe a little bit of an elevator pitch on your organisation and the role you play?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Gareth or Gareth Beverley. I'm the CEO of a small multinational drone company. So what that means is we help other companies use drones to gather data, make deliveries, and kind of better business decisions. And we do that by combining training, consultancy, and then flying and capturing data for them. So I work a lot with oil and gas, with other energy providers, and then based on our previous history as a training organization, we have loads of wild customers who've come from all sorts of walks of life. So it's really interesting to see the technology. My background is started out in IT and then went to NATS as a air traffic control engineer, and then ended up in the drone space. So kind of both things converged nicely. And I came into a technical role in Consortiq. And then over the last 7 years, I've worked my way now up into the top job. And I've been CEO for about 2.5 years now. So yeah, outside of work, I've got 2 young boys who are 7 and 9. I've got a wife, been married about 12 years. And I have many hobbies that I struggle to make time for, as we all do.
Yeah, some of those hobbies on display behind you, I believe.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Lots of Star Wars stuff, yeah.
Very cool, very good. So you've been the CEO for 2.5 years. How long have you been with the business?
7 years.
Wow, okay. Great. So I'm aware, just due to the fact that we spend quite a lot of time together in a training capacity, you have a pretty wild travel schedule. And I've worked in the maritime space. I've worked in cruise and super yachts where guys and girls are flying all over the world constantly. And so I'm aware of what a wild travel schedule looks like, and certainly can recognize that in what you're doing. So you're traveling monthly, bi-weekly at the moment?
Yeah, it varies. I get peaks and troughs, but yeah, generally kind of April through June is my busy season. And yeah, I can be on one continent one week and another the next.
Indeed. And so what would you say, particularly from a well-being or a health standpoint, what are the biggest challenges, what are the biggest obstacles when you are required to travel? Because it's long haul, by the way. I see you're in the States quite a lot, so it's not always domestic travel. What are the biggest challenges that you have to overcome or that you run into on a regular basis?
I think the big one is kind of maintaining routine, right? It's easy when you're at home and you've got systems in place and stuff, and you're balancing everything nicely, although it takes a lot of work, and we'll probably discuss that later. But yeah, when you go out on the road, it just throws everything out of kilter. And it's really hard to maintain that routine, maintain that healthy lifestyle that you try and maintain when you're at home. There's also kind of the jet lag thing and the sleep thing, and there's being a useful human for the time you're away. And then, of course, when you get back, you're straight into family life again. So it's those kind of things that are the big deals. The work stuff, you know, that's relatively easy to manage, to be honest. It's the easiest bit of the puzzle.
Do you find that with the work stuff, this is something I found generally was, I tend to go into autopilot. I was quite good, and you've been in the same organization for 7 years now. Before I left in November, was in the same organization for 7 years. And I get to a point where I know the pitch and I know most of the challenges my clients were having in advance. And so 99 times out of 100, I turn up and I kind of know what the dance is going to look like before we step on the dance floor. And so I'm able just to slot straight into work mode. It was the other stuff for me that was really challenging. Is that something you find also?
A little bit, yeah. I'm a like classic introvert. So one of the things I do when I'm away, generally I'm away for a conference or something, so I have to turn on my networking kind of muscles and get out there and socialize and things, and that's really draining for me. So I joked, I think I was, for my last round, I then went and locked myself in a room with no signal for like a day because I just didn't talk to anyone. So I find that hard. And then generally as well, if I'm speaking, so obviously I've got all the kind of associated pressures there, and if it's a new talk, that can be particularly like taxing. But I've tried to get into the habit again of you know, not rehashing old stuff, but kind of laying out the same points or having a similar talk for the year,
Right.
just to make my life easier for that year. So yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Here's a slightly left of field question, but it's something I've been given great consideration to, particularly because I have a couple of clients who I've found this to be the case with recently. You know, you're a fit guy, strong guy. How much do you think the role of being active, being fit, being in shape plays to your confidence when you are stood up speaking? I mean, I saw pictures of you at your keynote speech recently, you know, beautifully tailored suit that fitted you well, and feeling confident in perhaps how you look or how you present, especially at networking events. You know, I find that the cold open at a networking event is one of the hardest things to do in business. You put your hand out there, you say, "Hi, I'm Rob," and then you've got to make small talk out of nowhere that's engaging, but not too pushy. And I couldn't imagine doing that if I was maybe slightly self-conscious, or perhaps didn't like the way. You know, I'm not Brad Pitt, Gareth. I don't know if you've noticed, but generally, I know, right? But I don't know if that's something that you've considered, or does that play a role at all?
I'm actually really nervous a lot of the time. When I speak, I used to get like really bad nerves, like couldn't speak in front of people. So I've just immersed myself in it. I just do more, and I get slightly better every time. And yeah, there's little things I've picked up along the way. There's books I've read. There's a great one called Gravitas. I can't remember the name of the author, but that's really good. If you've seen the series Ted Lasso, there's a bit where the owner of the football team kind of does this thing where she's like, "Oh yeah, before I go out on stage, I do this like big body thing," and that's actually what the woman in the Gravitas book recommends. So yeah, kind of having that mental mindset change is quite good. And like you say, yeah, I think if you're dressed well, and you know, that helps. And then of course being kind of active and fit just kind of means that you can roll a bit better with all these kind of changes, and you can, I think, yeah, just perform better overall. I think so. That's where it all comes together for me.
Really interesting. We touched on the fact you're an active guy. You and I train a lot together. We're both students of Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. How do you manage being active or sustaining your activity levels when you're traveling?
It's harder then. So generally, and I think, you know, again, as I travel, I try and make a bit of time for myself. So whether that's I arrive a little bit early and I've got a morning or an afternoon, or I leave, before I get a flight out, I've got a bit of time. So that's kind of generally where I can find time to do some sort of activity, whether that's fitness or something else. Being flexible enough to have, if I've got 30-40 minutes, being able to crack a workout out or crack 50 press-ups out in my hotel room, that's been done. Keep myself active. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, finding those little pockets of time where you can do something and not maybe being too rigid with it and saying, right, I need an hour for a workout, or to run 10k, I guess, is an hour. But yeah, to run. So yeah, it's finding those little pockets, and that's kind of where it helps. But again, while traveling, it can be hard, and there have been weeks where I've been away and haven't been able to do anything, and you come back just like, I'm a bit disappointed, but get home and you've just got to get back straight as soon as you can, straight into the wagon at home and get back on that routine. So
yeah, I know it's something you do take very seriously, and you and I were texting a couple of weeks ago when you were in Austin, I believe, and you sent me like a selfie video of you taking a walk down what looked like a canal or out in nature, and I thought, yeah, that's Garth. That's very true to form. So could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, it's like I just sort of said, it's if I'm away for work or away from I try and find a bit of time to do something for me, and especially if I'm traveling bits of the world. So I went to San Diego early in the year, and jiu-jitsu, ended up training with Richie Boogeyman Martinez at his gym, which is awesome. And then Austin, I kind of did a bit of Googling, found there was a big, it's a lake, but it looks like a river. So I went, had an hour before flight, went walking down to the river and stuff. And yeah, it's like I say, it's just finding those bits of time where you go, right, rather than sitting and doom scrolling or going back through my Slack messages or emails, I'm disconnected and I'm going to crack on and go for a walk or do whatever it is. And sometimes it can be more difficult than others to make that time or find it. But there's a bit of expectation management as well, of generally that this whole thing about planning time in. So yeah, Austin was really nice, and that walk was good. It was just what I needed after a trade show over in Houston before my flight. It was good.
Do you feel a difference when you do and do not do those things when you're traveling?
Yeah, like I said, I just generally feel like I've a bit disappointed that I haven't managed to get something in. So again, Austin, I really wanted to do some jiu-jitsu, but I was on the back of an illness, so I couldn't get anything in, which I was like really upset about, because I've not been to Austin before, and some of the top people in the world are there. Not that I'm good, but could have been nice. Could learn something. So I just feel like disappointed, really, more than anything else. Just like, no, I didn't get anything in that week. That's a shame. So then, but then that motivates me to go, right, so when I get back, let's get to the gym. Like, I'm back on Saturday morning, land at 10:25 over AM. I could be in the gym for one, and we can crack an hour there, and then I'm back to routine, and that also helps with the jet lag and stuff as well.
So I've heard, and I know that there are some studies which I've not got my teeth into, but I am aware that even anecdotally, people saying, look, best thing to do for jet lag is just go and work out. It's almost like hitting the reset button. It's certainly it's something I tend to find if I am, weirdly enough, if I'm traveling to somewhere for work, then I need to work out or do something, whether it's a walk, like I say, push-ups in the room, something. But strangely enough, on the reverse end, when I get home, I just feel home, and almost that acts in itself as a factor of reset.
Okay.
I'm curious because you spend so much time in the States, the food is, of course, very tempting. Some of the best food in the world. But again, I know you're somebody who takes this quite seriously also. How do you manage not being gluttonous, yet still perhaps enjoying the perks of business travel?
I think if I had to pick one hole in my whole regime, it's my diet, Rob. Unfortunately, I'm probably not the best to preach about that, but I do try and make good choices where possible. I think I've had issues with like allergies and stuff as well, and it can be difficult to find things on an American menu that kind of hit all, that you can see whether it hits your buttons or not, really. But so generally trying to go for something, from where it's high protein, and then with vegetables and stuff like that. It's just trying to make some good choices along the way. But I am not afraid to crack a bucket of chicken wings or get knee deep in donuts if that's what takes my fancy. But where possible, especially if I'm kind of fueling for an event or something like that, if I'm going to speak, I think you've spoken about this, like I don't go out and have like a big heavy lunch, or if I'm with clients, I try not to have a big heavy dinner, because I don't want to be sluggish and slow and just digesting food. I want to be able to have intelligent conversation and kind of connections with people. So depends what I'm up to. But I mean, I'm happy with a massive steak and broccoli, which is kind of good in America. So that ticks all my boxes.
Yeah. I think you touched on something there, and you're right. I've spoken about it at length, and actually, it was one of the things that, I mean, there were a collection of things that made me think about making the move into this helpful executive, this coaching career in this period of my life. And one of them was going out to client dinners and client lunches and watching people fade in front of my eyes, whether that's their drinking, which again I don't have a problem with, but you see the effect over the course of an hour and a half when they are getting stuck into the heavy refined carbs. And I'm trying to have an intelligent conversation. I'm trying to do business with you here, man, and they're sort of falling asleep maybe it's my pitch. Someone did point out to me, maybe it's me, but I really have noticed that. And I used to try and encourage my colleagues that, look, we have the company credit card at our disposal. The boss isn't stingy. However, we are not on holiday, we're on business. So, let's act accordingly. We're here to perform. Don't get me wrong, you catch me at the all-inclusive buffet on holiday and I'm having all of it.
Yeah.
But if we're on business, we're on business. So I think there's an interesting segue here. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to business travel, and something I was really keen to discuss and have you speak about on this pod. According to researchers, when we sleep anywhere that is kind of foreign to us, so hotel rooms, our body doesn't fall as deeply into deep sleep and REM sleep as we would like it to. And apparently it's an evolutionary concept whereby we want to kind of almost sleep with one eye open, because we're in a strange environment. So, and I'm very particular about my pillow. So generally, if I sleep in a hotel, I don't sleep very well. Is this something, I know you've had troubles with sleep, which we'll get onto in a moment, but is this something you've noticed as well?
Yeah, always. First night in a new hotel is never good. And like I say, you saying that, I'd never really considered it, but yeah, that probably is what it is. You're in a lighter sleep because your evolutionary brain is looking out for predators. Ironically, when I was in the military, I could sleep anywhere, but now not so much. So I was only for a little bit, so that's why I didn't mention it earlier.
But maybe that's because you were surrounded by other military professionals that they had your back.
Word, but yeah.
So as I touched on, you've had your challenges with sleep. You were an insomniac. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah. I suppose it's one of those things that I kind of suffered with poor sleep, and then at one point I don't know what I did. I think I was speaking to the doctor about something else, and it was started talking about the sleep thing, and they sort of said, well, yeah, that's because you're an insomniac. And I was like, no, I just have a bit of trouble. And like, no, if like the technical definition or whatever it was, if you have this much trouble getting to sleep, which was my big problem, that's onset insomnia. I'm like, oh, and I suppose that was like a little light bulb. And I think one of the things so I tried to like go the medical route and see what was up there, and sleep apnea tests and all that, and didn't really do much. But effectively, it was really affecting my performance, as an individual and as a work-wise and at home. If I didn't sleep well, I'd be really crabby, and of course then like you're snappy with the kids, or worse, the wife, and you're just not your best version of yourself. And I think managing that is quite hard. It helps if everyone's understanding, which I think my house was. The boys would know, like, I've had a bad. I'll be open about it. I've had a bad night. I'm in a bad mood, and the boys are like, okay, Daddy, we'll be nice to you today.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
as opposed to every other day.
Yeah, that's it. They'll dial their intensity back from like 10 to sort of 7, which is which is enough. So that works really well. Being able to like be open about it is good. And it's one of these things where, like, being interested in this healthy side of things, obviously everyone sort of says, sleep, and you're like, and I got myself quite stressed about the sleep thing, which I didn't quite realize. So I had a really bad night. I think it was actually like over New Year this year. I think it's when I sat reading a book. I think it was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Be Useful book. If anyone's interested in that, it's a good read. And I read that in a night because I couldn't sleep. Wow. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I need to do something about it. And I ended up, I can't remember how it came about, but I found a program via Instagram ads or something ridiculous. I must have been searching for remedies. And I've tried everything before that. So all this stuff about no screens in bed and no, same side of the pillow, bed, same time to bed, and all this kind of stuff. I've tried that for years, didn't do anything. So I actually found like a specialist insomnia treatment program, and it was like an online thing. You pay some money and they take you through it, and it's run by somebody who's like head of insomnia clinic at Guy's Hospital or something like that in London. So it's, she's got a good pedigree. Started this course, and it just sort of literally changed my life. Which probably sounds quite bold to say, but I'm sleeping a lot better. The first thing that they said was like, stop stressing, and they kind of spoke through, and it's a mix of kind of sleep programming and a bit of like neuro-linguistic programming, I guess, and all this kind of stuff that ties together. And it was really good. And they effectively, you train yourself up, you kind of get yourself into like a sleep deprived state, and then you start to sleep consistently over time in like a particular window. And then what you start to do then is to expand that window in a programmatic fashion. So, I mean, and then you hit a natural kind of plateau of when you're good to sleep and stuff. So I roughly get 6.5 to 7 hours a night. That's the most. As opposed to what were you getting? Like 4. Oof. Yeah, or some nights an hour. I think lack of consistency is probably a bigger problem than lack of sleep. If you can deal with one night of poor sleep, you've only got to think of new parents. You can kind of deal with being sleep deprived for a little bit, but if that's months, that really starts to affect your performance and your brain. So being able to consistently get 6 to 7 hours is game changing for me. And so that's been really powerful. And then that actually factors into how I handle my travel routine as well, because I know some of the stuff is like the sleep protocols and the morning routine that sets you up for a good sleep routine. And that is kind of light exposure, movement, and eating. So when I'm traveling, I try and manage those 3 things. Like in that first morning, I'm generally awake early because it's the US. I'm awake like 4 or 5. Right. But going for an early morning walk, that's your light exposure and your movement, and then eating breakfast as soon as you can. Just starts to get you into that routine. And likewise, when I get home, just do the same thing. So that's kind of helped, and that's kind of where some of that comes from for me as well, is that sleep insomnia program.
I think for years I slightly discredited the light thing, the sunlight or natural light early, because it sounds a little bit rah-rah. It just, for me, it just didn't. I understood the logic. I just didn't know how much of a difference it would make until I started doing it. And I couldn't believe the difference that it even on overcast days. There was that combination of sunlight and also, if it was cold, as it often is here in the UK, just a little bit of wind on my face. I couldn't believe the difference. And I think it's still one of the things that people aren't putting into their morning routine that they really should be. I think people know to eat well. Generally, what you eat, it reflects on how you perform. You know, I'm really big on hydration first thing, trying to delay your caffeine intake. But yeah, I think sunlight or natural light exposure is hugely overrated. And I get questions. I mean, I've got a Finnish client, and he said to me, Rob, you know, how am I supposed to get natural light in my eyes first thing? We get like 15 minutes of sunlight a year here. And interestingly, I was watching something with Dr. Andrew Huberman, who was talking about, well, if you can't get natural sunlight in your eyes first thing, just get bright light. It doesn't quite do the same thing, but it will give you similar effects. And as soon as you're able to step outside, I mean, I've been to Finland a couple of times, and it's true, like it gets a little bit lighter a little bit later in the day, but get that exposure of light into your eyes first thing, even if it's artificial light, but just make it bright. And then as soon as you're able to step out and absorb that natural light. So I think that's really interesting, Garth. So you're saying now that sort of 6 to 7 hours is the sweet spot for you. What's optimal?
It kind of depends what's been going on, but yeah, I would say generally like the 7 hour mark. I'm trying to think. I generally go to bed about 11:30, and I try and get up at 6:30. So yeah, that is bang on 7, and it's just how good the quality is in between those hours. Really, that's where the difference comes in. Some days it's better than worse. Last night I had a bit of a rough night, but I did jiu-jitsu for the first time in a month, so
right.
I think
so your fight or flight is elevated. I know that class finishes at 9.
Yeah. So I finished at 9. I still went to bed after 11. Got into bed, and yeah, took a while to get to sleep. So you know, but then hopefully tonight it'll be a bit better again. So yeah, that's roughly the routine. So.
Do you wear a sleep monitor or anything like that? A smartwatch to bed?
Yeah, wear a Garmin smartwatch. I've had a Fitbit as well, but those are the two I've used, and they're not 100% accurate. And this was one of the things the sleep program said, was like, don't stress over that. It's just a guideline. You know, no one's going to give you 100%, but sometimes it's good to have that reinforcement factor of, oh look, I have had a good night, or no, I haven't. But yeah, I don't live and die by it anymore, for sure. So guidance more than anything else.
You took the words out of my mouth. I wear a Whoop, and I really rate it, but it is hard not to get suckered in at times. You think, why is my HRV so low? And then start researching, you know, do I have this, do I have that? But one thing I did notice actually, and I thought it was really interesting to bring up today just because of this conversation. Last week my wife and I were working on a project that required a ton of screen time. It's a big project. We're really excited about it. I can't tell you what it is at the moment, but we were working. I know it's a teaser. You know, tune in next week for more. We ton of screen time, and we were getting to bed later than we usually do, which was like 11 o'clock plus. In addition to that, we've got a 7-month-old baby, so we've woken up a few times in the night. And all in all, we weren't getting a terrible night's sleep. I was getting 6.5 hours according to my Whoop strap. And my recovery rate was in the 60s. Sort of my readiness score, depending on which device you use, was in the 60s. This week we're back in routine. We're in bed around 10. We read till about 10:30. Then we go to sleep, and I'm getting an hour more. So I'm getting 7.5 hours now, and I'm in the high 90s consistently. So it was really interesting for me. Like I say, this isn't the hill we're going to die on with these devices. However, it was really interesting for me to see that 6.5 isn't good enough for me. 7.5 seems to be optimal. So just being aware that, like I said, we're not gonna live our life totally revolved around our devices, but I can kind of work out that, right, shit, I need to get to bed. So that's been a really useful thing for me. So I really think people should, if they don't have something like that, it's worth investing in, because I think it's valuable. Just don't get too obsessed. That's the hard part.
Yeah, they're really good for like quantifying you know, a feeling, something that, you know, a qualitative kind of metric. So you can, oh, I'm really tired, and you look and you go, But this is saying I didn't get enough REM or whatever it was. You're like, okay, and, you know, that's probably why. Rather than maybe like, oh, I didn't get enough REM, right? I need to go to bed half an hour earlier and not do this. And yeah, like how you're driven by it, I think, you need to manage.
Yes, and it was really useful just for us to understand that the nighttime routine that we have generally seems to be a positive one, rather than screen till late, then bed, then trying to get to sleep. You know, for us that reading really works in the evening. So that I thought I would just raise because I thought it was relatively interesting. So what were the kind of major changes that you made to your sleep in order to, because I'm sure you're not the only one. I mean, I know tons of busy professionals that aren't getting enough sleep. If you could give us perhaps a couple of key takeaways.
Yeah, I would say that kind of morning routine is probably the biggest one. And when you're starting on the program, I've probably slacked a little bit on this one now, but get up at the same time every day, because that then forces your body at the other side of the clock and in the evening to kind of get you to bed at the right time. So if you're one of these people that is like, oh, I'll get up at 6 on the weekend and 6 during the week and then 8 at the weekend, or more extreme, that can have an effect. So yeah, trying to build in that consistency is important as well. Like I say, I was very rigid for the first kind of 6 weeks, 2 months. And then as now I've settled into much more of a routine, I kind of get, I give myself an extra snooze, Rob, I'm sorry, or something like that every now and then. I treat myself. Yeah, but certainly that morning routine is huge, absolutely huge, and not stressing. Like, you're not going to die directly from insomnia or from being tired. You'll just be a bit sluggish. And the thing they said was, think to yourself, well, I've made it through bad days before. Like, a bad day, you'll get into bed tonight. All you have to do is kind of crack on and get through the day, and then you're back into your evening. So yeah, don't obsess, don't stress, and just kind of if you get up at the same time, your body will accommodate it and climatize effectively.
So I'll put you on the spot a little bit, mate. You've already talked about eating well, light exposure. Could you kind of walk us through your morning routine?
Yeah, for sure. So my wife's a nurse, so she gets up quite early, but my alarm goes off 6:15. I try and get up at 6:15 every day, but I would say it skews a little bit to 6:30, which is fine. Get up, go straight downstairs, and one of the boys will be up, so I help sort him out. And then I am, generally having a cup of tea by the windows or with the door open if the weather's kind of looking good, and prepping a breakfast. So in winter, that's kind of a porridgey type breakfast with loads of stuff in it that makes it healthy. And then recently I've been having a bit more of like the bacon and egg, the higher protein intake. I found I was trying to up that, and then it's kind of then I'm straight into prepping the boys for school, because I'm the one who has to do that sort of 3 days a week, get them ready for all that, and then they head out, and then I start my work day, so like 8:30. So yeah, similar for the weekend, and simple, not too complicated. And I'm sure there are things that I could tweak if I wanted optimum performance, but works for me. And it does now. I've got the sleep sort of stuff dialed in a bit better for sure.
I think you've touched on something really important there, and that is that it works for you. I think with a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing on social media, it's take it if it works for you. I think that's really important, because we get fed so much information through the social media highways that it can be overwhelming. If for me, I put out a thing today about non-negotiables. My non-negotiable is absolutely hydrate immediately and get cold. I need that in the morning. However, sure, it would be great to do some journaling. It would be great to do some meditation. It would be great to do some yoga before I left the house. I mean, we've only got so much time, so it needs to work for you. One thing that to change the subject, one thing that I'm aware you've become very good at recently is managing your diary. You're a busy chief exec, international travel, husband, father, very active in your fitness pursuits and your study of Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. How could let's reverse engineer it. What mistakes have you made in the past with your diary management that you think others have made, and things that have maybe had a knock-on effect on a performance, relationships, that type of thing?
I would say the biggest thing is not being proactive.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's the absolute biggest thing. Either not planning stuff in, or seeing where the dice fall, or whatever the phrase is, seeing where things go and trying to squeeze stuff in around it. I think that's easily the biggest one, is being reactive. If you let other people manage your diary and your time, they absolutely will.
Sure.
I'm always in demand, whether that's a meeting, a Slack message, a phone call, an email, an in-person kind of chat. I could be all over the place all the time. So yeah, I'm a ruthless diariser, I would say, to the frustration of my wife, but because I make her do it as well. But that's kind of what we need. So yeah, that's easily the biggest thing. Yeah, is not being proactive with it.
Understood. And I see it at chief exec level. I mean, I'm busy now, don't get me wrong. In my previous job, I was busy, international clients, different time zones, and it was really humbling for me, because I'd hang out with mates or family and my phone's going off non-stop, and then I'd sit down with a chief exec or a CFO, and for every one message or vibration that my phone gives off, they're getting 3 or 4. And seeing like, wow, I think I'm busy, this is what busy looks like. So I appreciate, for someone like yourself, your time is always in demand, because you are often the firefighter, you're the guy who needs to sign off, we need your approval on this. And generally speaking, I don't know if you'll agree with this, it's not always the big stuff, it's not always the board meetings, it's the, Garth, have you got 5? We quickly need approval on this, can you sign this off? And very quickly that escalates, and before you know it, it's 10 to 5 and you're thinking, I haven't had lunch. Yeah,
or you don't feel like you've achieved anything as well in your day. That's a big one.
Right. You've got everyone else's work done.
Yeah. We're still quite a small company, so I have many hats. I'm CEO, I'm head of IT, head of HR,
right.
Head of IT security, and I dabble in all the other stuff. So yeah, I could be spending my time doing all sorts of things. So the demands are constant, and it's just about being a bit ruthless with it, and expectation management, I think, is key. I like my team to manage my expectations. I would say no surprises. I don't want a surprise. I'd rather just people be upfront. And so I like to try and manage their expectations as well. Like, if you try and message me on the weekend, I either won't respond, or I'll only respond if it's urgent, or if you Slack me, then WhatsApp me, then phone me, because I'll be like, oh, now it's important. And you trying to get people to use things like the old Eisenhower matrix. What's urgent and important, and what isn't, and what's important for you or urgent for you, unfortunately, isn't always urgent for me. And trying to get people to understand like a bit of the pressure on my time, so that they can make more effective decisions about when to involve me. And I always like to say, if it's going to break the business, then yeah, definitely. Like, I don't care where I am, call me, get me involved. But if it's like something we just like say, oh, I just need 5 minutes, or I just need approval, like we have mechanisms in place where you don't need my approval for that sort of thing. Like, somebody else can do it, or you have the autonomy to make that decision. You might be a bit scared to make that decision, but feel free. So it's management, proactive and ruthlessness.
I think you're absolutely right. and often they want you to help in making the decision. It's not that they need you, they just want to, they perhaps don't have the confidence in there. And I'm not saying this in your organization specifically, but it was something that I noticed as a leader previously, was that they knew the answer, they just wanted to have it confirmed.
Yeah.
And so, oh, you know this. Yeah, exactly that. So diary management, how does that play into your health and your well-being, your stress levels, etc.?
Yeah, so what I try and do is block out some time for myself at the start of the week, and in fact I did it earlier for next week just to get ahead of the curve. So yeah, it's just about, okay, what does my current meeting schedule look like? Where can I find half an hour to do something in the week, if that's kind of how I'm playing it? So if I go to the gym, I try and make the time for that, or if I maybe have to bust it down to half an hour, right, that's a kettlebell workout downstairs. And then obviously planning in the jiu-jitsu side of things, that's generally evenings, which then I have to deconflict with the wife's gym schedule, the boys, Cubs and Beavers and stuff like that. So it just, if you are proactive about it, just kind of takes some of that stress out. And like I said, then if it's blocked out in my diary because it happens to be during core working hours or whatever for some people, then they know that I'm not available, and there's less stress of like, oh, I wanted to put this in your diary, but you says you're out, and it's like, yeah, because I'm out, so don't put it in my diary. And there's times when I have to break the rule, but it's normally if it's again something quite urgent, or it's lots of external people that we can't control. But most of the time, that stuff that's in my diary is sort of sacrosanct, and I won't budge on it. I did kick myself the other day because I had it in my diary to be at the gym for, like, I don't know what it was, 12. I ended up having to go at 12:30 because of so I had to like slide the appointment back and rejig the diary slightly, but it was all good. Just meant, again, trying to set out with the best intention. So one of the things I did is I was following a chap who's specialized in productivity. His name's Ali Abdal. He was a trainee doctor in the UK, has a big YouTube following and stuff like that. And he kind of focuses on productivity and things. And he set out this thing of creating your ideal week. So if you run something like I run a Google Calendar, so I can create like a new calendar that I don't always see. So what I have in there is, what does my ideal week look like, with kind of all the fixed things in it. So I know I have company meeting on a Monday afternoon. I know boys do Beavers Beavers and Cubs Tuesday and Wednesday night. I know, I like to train on a Friday night as well, and a Tuesday fun, and try and fit it in. So I have all this stuff laid out, and that's my ideal week that I've thought about ages ago. And it can include stuff like morning routine, bed routine, things like that, like just as much detail as you like. And then when you're trying to plan out your week for the following week, if you do like your Sunday night admin, which I believe you do, of planning your next week ahead, then you can dial up that ideal calendar and maybe see, okay, that's what I would like to do. So, I've got space to do that here, and here. And that just helps to get you in the right frame of mind, and always maybe looking at the jumble that is your current diary picture and trying to find stuff. If you have an ideal in your head, you can actually just transpose that, or at least figure things out, and it will help you get started.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I call it front loading. It's not that much of an inventive term, but something I've noticed with me is, so I like the analogy. I'm sure people have heard it, and people have probably heard me talk about it quite a lot. The rocks, pebbles, sand analogy in the jar. So what are my rocks? So my training is absolutely a rock. Spending time with my wife and kids is a rock. The stuff that's going to take up the biggest real estate. And there are some things that are work that are rocks. But I used the term a little while ago that most of the time work isn't a rock. It's a pebble and a puffer coat. And then building out from there. So front loading, and that's been great for me. I'm very fortunate that I am particularly good in pockets of deep work. I will get more work done in 90 minutes than most can in a couple of hours. But if that period of time drags on into 2 hours, 2.5 hours, my productivity falls right off a cliff. So I don't know if that's ADHD or not, but you know, Tasmanian devil for 90 minutes, and I can do that a couple of times a day.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate that, you know, I know that there are some people they're not wired that way. But for me, it's something that I've been particularly good at, and then I can say, right, I'm working out here, and it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I also really resonated with something you said about just being clear and candid. So to share a quick story from my background, where I used to work in international markets, I would get phone calls all the time, non-stop. And the amount of times I'd be walking into the gym, particularly scheduled classes, like a jiu-jitsu class, which is from X till Y, and a client calls me and I say, hey, what's up? And they'll start to offload and saying, look, I'm not available now for the next 90 minutes. And truth be told, this class finishes at 9 and I'll be offline by then. This sounds like it can wait till the morning. Can I pick this up in the morning? And don't get me wrong, I work with a bunch of startups and they were like, no, this is business critical. Okay, well, I get paid to do this, so I'll handle this. But 9 times out of 10, or probably even more so than that, it can be handled in the morning. It's just being brave enough to say, this is my time. And if you want me performing optimally, I need this. It's really important for me to make sure I get in. So I think that clear communication has been a real key for me. It took me a while to get there, and I think I needed to get established in my kind of in my industry, where I had enough about me, where people trusted and believed in me. When I said I'll pick it up in the morning, they knew it was getting taken care of in the morning. But I do think that communication is absolutely key. I think it's spot on.
Yeah, and like I say, expectation management. It's my team generally know that outside of hours, you know, if I said whatever it is, 9 to 5, 8 till 6, whatever I'm working, I've either got family stuff, they know I train in the evenings, you know, that sort of thing. And if I've got out in my diary, they know I'm out. So yeah, it's setting expectation that you're not available, I think is good. And then it's about sticking to it. Or if you can't stick to it, I'll be honest, there's times when I've done work when I'm not supposed to, but I'm a devious devil, so I'll schedule the message or the response to go in at a working hour. So I've cracked it beforehand, but but then nobody in the team, you know, sees that, because I'm trying to lead by example of saying that's the way forward. The other thing we do is I encourage the team to kind of, well, they manage their diaries themselves. So I'm not bum in seat. How much time you work, I'm output driven. So get the thing done. I don't care how much time you spend on it. Generally, I know people will work some days more. You know, some days I'll have things, pop-ups and family stuff, and I think working around that is really important in this day and age. Is, you know, people, I think that the days of being in an office where you're chained to the desk for, you know, 9-10 hours a day, I don't see us being in that world anymore. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, certainly when I was in air traffic, I remember I asked to work from home one day, and they sort of, you know, they did the Wakandan meme, like, we don't do that here. And you're like, oh, I wasn't doing air traffic, by the way, listeners. I was reviewing a document, and I'm like, can I do this from home? It'd be way easier. And I got told no, and I'm like, oh. And then 2020, COVID hit, and the whole organization went to work from home, they told me. So I'm like, oh, that's, you know, it's funny how these things happen. So yeah, I think we're in a world now where we can be flexible. So why shouldn't we? And then if you're being flexible and like I say, you need that time, well, make that time and get on with it. You know, don't make excuses that you're busy, because I know you are. And again, this is a conversation between me and my team. Like, I know you guys are busy. I really, you know, I am too, but I encourage you to do this, and, you know, see where you can find time in your day to get out and do something that's going to liven you up for the rest of the day, and maybe have a good impact on your kind of your health, physical and mental.
I think that's tremendous, Garth. Honestly, not enough leaders are doing what you're doing in that regard. So what I mean is, you're setting an example, and I really do think when you are active and you are fit and you are healthy, your leadership stock goes up in general. But encouraging your team to do the same, and so many leaders overlook the fact that the return on investment you get as a business from your staff being healthy, happy, is significant. And you'll hear, I mean, I've heard these before, the kind of leadership red flags. I want to go to, and this is generally speaking to clients of mine, or we're always looking at how we can get a workout in, where can we do it, how can we work it around your lifestyle and your schedule. And their boss will say, I mean, yeah, of course you can go to the lunchtime, but we have got a lot of work to do though. That's a massive leadership red flag for me, that like, yeah, we've all got work to do, but do you want them to do it well? Or you want them to work through lunch? You want them to sacrifice their health for the business and their well-being and their mental health. So if you are listening and you're a leader and you're shutting your team down, doing active things and going out and even if it's taking a walk on their lunch break, shame on you. But I think more leaders like you, Garth, need to be banging that drum, because it's the simplest productivity hack a business can make.
I think as well that there's benefit for taking that step away. If you're in a task where you're struggling to find a solution, or you're trying to be creative. If you are just in the task for too long, you get sucked into it and you can't see the solution, you can't think of that creative output. So stepping away for like an hour, half an hour to, whatever it is, strangle some fools or go for a walk, that can really help, and you can come back refreshed, and that instantly compresses your time, because you're now much more productive than just sitting at that desk for an extra hour. And I've seen it happen. I've seen the difference, and I'm a big believer in okay, right, I've got to a point now where I can't get this solution out of me for whatever reason. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to, even if it's simple, like go make a coffee, walk around the building. That gets me away for 10 minutes, and then come back and you go, right, here we go, and you're back in, and that's a huge benefit.
I completely agree. Tying diary management into holidays, annual leave, you and I think previously were maybe not so good at this. I'm a real sucker for working on holiday, and just because I've got a double whiskey in my hands and I'm in my swim shorts, I'm still on the phone, doesn't mean I'm not working. It's a big deal, and I know that's something perhaps you've struggled with in the past.
Yeah, I think it part of it starts with this kind of world we're in now, right? Is everyone has instant access to you and your eyes, because we run Slack and we run which is obviously instant messaging for those that don't use it, like Teams, but better. You've got email, which means anyone can contact you anytime, plus obviously phones work internationally, so there can be huge distractions on your time. And I've certainly not made that time to disconnect before, and gone away and still been a bit connected, and haven't then really felt the benefit of being away for whatever reason. And so now I'm much more, again, militant / proactive about it. I've gone so far because I go on a few holidays a year, partly to balance out all the stress, and partly because my wife really likes a holiday. So, happy wife, happy life. And so, what I'll try and do is, if we have a big holiday, I will go fully off the grid for like one of them, and then maybe the others I might be like, I'll still dip in of an evening for like 10 minutes and just keep a hand on the wheel, as it were. So when I'm in full disconnect, I delete the apps off my phone. I'll turn off the notifications and the accounts. So and I tell the team again up front, if you really need me, WhatsApp me or phone me, and I'll pick up. But it needs to be like urgent, and if you abuse that power, I'll just block you.
Right.
I've not quite gone that far, but but that's how I run it. And I think that's when you really get the benefit of disconnecting and being away. And and it's not just that, is it? Because yeah, okay, we talk about performance, but it's also like you've got a family, you've got connections with people that you want to maintain, whether that is, you know, your boys' weekend or your big family holiday. And, you know, hate to sound a bit morbid about it, but you only get so much time on this earth. And I think, you know, no one's going to be on their deathbed thinking, I wish I'd worked more.
Completely agree.
I think, you know, life's about balance. And I think you have to manage it yourself. No one's going to balance it for you. You have to balance it yourself. And I think you just got, sometimes you'll be a bit brutal about it one way or the other to make it happen, and be present in the things you want to be doing.
I absolutely agree. It was something that I look back and it's a difficult one. And I'll try not to overshare here and try not to come across slightly big-headed in what I'm saying. In order for me to create a situation where I was able to walk away from a very well-paid job with career prospects, I had to do a lot of legwork to create a platform in which I am financially comfortable and able to make this transition, be a more present dad, and so that required a lot of work. That required a lot of being on. That required a lot of closing deals. And just because I went on holiday didn't mean that the deal closing stopped. What I should point out, however, is my boss, or my former boss, always asked me, is there anything you'd like to hand over to me? And I'll handle it while you're gone. But I didn't like that idea because I would stress over not knowing. I want to be the one who drives it across the line. I want to be the one that's in control. And so it's not that the support wasn't there, because it was, but I wanted to be hands-on, because I didn't want to have to think about how's it going, have I made the commission on it, etc., etc. And so on the one hand, it's afforded me the opportunity to come on and do this, which I love and is my real passion. But I look back and I think of moments in beautiful locations at very expensive resorts where I wasn't present. And my wife's lying there sunbathing, chilling out with her out of office on, and I'm pacing up and down on the phone trying to get another deal across the line. And so it's a difficult one. It's a catch-22 for me. I have some regret, and I'm pleased I also did it, but I do remember getting back to the office and within a couple of weeks feeling like shit again. Yeah. Feeling knackered, feeling like I wish I'd made more of that. I think that it is a really important thing. And of course, now as a new dad, I know you've got two little ones as well. You know, they're watching, and they just want dad to be present. Yeah,
that's it, isn't it? Yeah, they're watching, and you know, you think mine are 7 and 9. You know, they're there's only about 4 years left for the elder one before he's going to be in that "I hate you, dad" phase. You know, Kevin and Perry style, and yeah, they won't want to spend as much time with you, so you then kind of have and then the time's gone. So yeah, I think whilst they are younger, that's when you want to be, you know, taking that time, being present with them and having that fun and building stupid things in Lego and playing silly games and stuff. Rather than being on the phone and things. And you know, again, the boys, we talk to them about it. That openness is like, look, you know, you like going on holiday, don't you? Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you know, that's why we work, so we can pay for this house and the holidays. And it's not to kind of bring them down. It's just so they understand that we can't always just be having fun all the time. You know, working at home, there are times when, especially school holidays, where they're downstairs playing and stuff, and they come in and they're like, "Oh, daddy," like, and I'm like, "Look, really sorry, I'm working. I can't," you know, and you have to kind of be like, "I know I'm here, but I'm working, and remember why we need to work." Yep. We like holidays. Bye. You know, right. Yeah, and I think that's it's that presentness, but it's also managing your disconnection so that you can come back better as well. So I think those breaks are really important for both of those reasons.
So what would be your go-to for busy professionals listening who want to I guess A, maximize their performance, but B, perhaps want to be better at switching off. If you could just cherry pick a couple of concepts or ideas that you would say that this is how I like to do it. These are the things that I think we should be focusing on, and what would those little nuggets of advice or wisdom be?
Yeah, be a ruthless diariser for sure. Be proactive in how you manage that time, so that you get what you want from it. And then, yeah, I would say, make time to go to the gym or have a physical hobby. I have a few hobbies. They're not all, active. So
they're quite cognitive, aren't they?
Or
some more cathartic.
Yeah. I like do a bit of painting. I do a bit of drawing, and I'm known to fire at the PlayStation every now and then as well. So a mix. And yeah, then obviously I do the jiu-jitsu and I'm mountain biking and all sorts of other stuff as well. So yeah, have a try and find yourself like a physical hobby, physical passion. I think that's a good one, because then you'll want to make the time for it. Which then makes it just that little bit easier. If you have to drag yourself to the gym every day and you hate doing it, you won't do it because you don't like doing it. So yeah, again, find something that you like, and then when you are disconnected, you are on holiday, be disconnected and be present for the things you're doing, and set the framework or the rules or the expectation that and manage it so that it works for you. Again, like you say, right, is there are times when I do have to work whilst I'm away because something needs doing with a tight deadline and I'm the only one that can do it, and you just have to manage that. But don't make that the norm. Try and make that the exception, and make everybody on board to understand why that is. And part of that, again, is that leadership piece of setting the right example for your team. And if they can see that, wow, Garth's really productive, and oh yeah, he did go to the gym just before this meeting, and wow, he seems on fire now, and something like that. Like if they can see the benefit and see that you're doing it and you're still performing and fitting all your work in, then hopefully they'll follow that example, and make that time.
I think that's great, mate. I think that's really good advice. It would be remiss of us to not, before we close out, anybody who spent more than 7 minutes in my presence over the last 2 years will know that I will shoehorn Brazilian Jiu-jitsu into every conversation. But what I would say is there are many crossovers and metaphors in jiu-jitsu that are reflective of life and I think business. And I think we should just point out that anyone who isn't familiar with Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, Garth is a blue belt, which by the way means he's got a bit. And apparently, I read a statistic that of all the people that ever start jiu-jitsu, only 10% of all people make it to their blue belt. So it's
wow.
It's a very, very hard thing to do, and I think it's perhaps a misunderstood martial art or a misunderstood hobby. Why do you love Brazilian Jiu-jitsu?
Oh crikey! It's good exercise for starters. I'm like a lifelong learner, so I love just learning new skills. I'm not very physical, so I could probably teach myself to code in a week, right? But I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 4 years and I still feel like I only know the basics. And I think, for me as somebody who spends most of their time, thinking about stuff and typing, having a physical hobby is absolutely brilliant. It's quite uncomfortable but you learn to love it. So you learn to kind of be in difficult positions and be thinking your way through it and be calm. That's really nice. I find it quite humbling as well. I don't want to say I've got a big ego, but I don't know. There's just times when it's nice to have that kind of reality check of you're not the best thing since sliced bread. Hey, you've got a lot to learn. Keep trying. Rather than maybe as a senior leader, you could. Some people might be a bit complacent or think that I'm at the top of the tree. Hey, here I am. Whereas I think having something where you are a beginner, and I think there is something called the beginner's mindset where that just helps you in your other pursuits. So yeah, it's mostly the physicalness. I've done martial arts for like 20 years as well, other types. Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, I kind of fell in love with it after UFC 1 with the Gracies coming in and you know, smashing up all the other martial arts. And took about 20 years to come back to it, but here I am, and yeah, keep grinding, keep pushing away, and you know, one day I'd love to be a black belt, but that's about 10 years out.
You're very much on that journey, on that trajectory, mate. I think something that I really love about Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, and I tell everybody they should do it. There's a couple of things for me that have been really important. Two things in particular I think have been really important about Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, both in my personal but in my professional life. The first one is that it is completely immersive. So when you are trying not to have a big guy choke you unconscious, or you've got someone sat on your chest and they're attacking you, it's really hard to think about that email you've just received or what's on your to-do list. And so it's really good at just taking you completely out of the zone and placing you in this box for a period of time. And I would generally, regardless of the day I've had, I would go back to my bag at the end of the session, pick up my phone and kind of go, oh yeah, I can box that off really quickly. Or it allowed me to just step away completely. I find with the gym, as much as I enjoy going to the gym, I can still think. I have my phone on me for my music, and therefore my WhatsApp's still active, so is my email. People can call me. I might run into a business leader in the gym, as I did the other day. But also I think that the other thing for me with jiu-jitsu that is really powerful is it forces you to fail over and over. So particularly when you're a beginner, you know, you get tapped a lot, like all the time, and then you get tapped, so you fail, you shake hands, you go again and again and again, and you know, for a real beginner, you might get tapped 30 to 50 times in a session. And then you're driving home in the car in silence thinking, what just happened? But all of a sudden the real problem emerges and you're like, hang on, I can deal with failure, I can deal with adversity. So yeah, this is my advert for, you know, if you are a busy professional, Brazilian Jiu-jitsu is what's missing.
Well, you know, Mark Zuckerberg does it. You know, you've had loads of, you know, big celebs that Tom Hardy's a big fan. It's, you know, people see the benefits, and yeah, I totally forgot about the whole de-stressing thing by being immersed, but that's a huge one for me. It is a stress relief thing, takes your mind right off it. So yeah, I think the benefits are huge. And yeah, you just gotta, you know, you can't prep for it. You just have to go. Don't sit there going, I'm not fit enough, or I'm not ready. I just need to do this thing. No, just step on the mats, you know, and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Garth, this has been really good, mate. I've really enjoyed this. I always enjoy our conversations anyway, and I'm so glad we got to capture one, because I always come away feeling really inspired when we speak. Is there anything that you'd like to add? You know, you've been successful in your career, successful in your home life with a lovely family, and you know, jiu-jitsu is going your way at the moment. You know, is there anything you'd like to leave us with, or any kind of overarching piece of advice that you think would be valuable before we part ways this evening?
I think I just reiterate like some of the points from earlier is, you know, make that time for yourself, whether you are traveling or you're at home. You know, make that time, have a conversation with the other half if you need to about like, look, I'm going to start doing this and being out 2 nights a week or whatever, and make it happen. I think that's a huge thing. I think in careers, I've had sort of 4 or 5 careers really, and I never saw myself as a business leader. And I think it's just having, you know, an ability to learn and adapt and take on subjects and kind of utilize the knowledge from them is huge. And that sort of attitude to be able to do that, you know, a learning attitude is amazing. Don't think you know it all. That will set you in good stead for everything else you do, I think.
I absolutely agree. Garth, thank you, mate. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know how busy you are. So it's great to have you on. Great to hear from you. Thanks for supporting the Helpful Executive. Thank you for supporting the podcast. You know, right from its inception, you've been right there cheering me on, mate. It is greatly appreciated.
Oh, it's my pleasure, mate. It's always great to see what you're up to. I like, love listening to all your bits of video and things. So yeah, I'm excited to listen to the podcast as well and see what you've got in store for us.
That's appreciated. Gareth Beverley, everybody. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Rob.